Hello everyone, Kevin Stevenson here with GetMeTheGeek.com, and today we have another episode about virtual gaming. This is part 2 about Proxmox virtual gaming. Today we're going to do some performance tunings. I'm going to get that virtual gaming up above the 30 frames that we had in the remote desktop session. So we're going to aim for 60 frames and beyond. Let's get started. All right, here we go. All right, so first of all, let's go over here, and I have TeamViewered into my virtual machine. Let me just pull this up here. And so it's this guy right here. We're TeamViewered in. And if you, just a quick recap, I've got 8 gigs, quad-core processor copied in there. And you know, all the settings you see right here. We went through the PCI hardware pass-through. So go back in there and you look at that. You'll see that that is set to my Quadro K2200. And so if you have any questions about how I did that, go ahead and check out my other video on Proxmox virtual gaming. But this time we are going to look at making it faster. So how are we going to do that? Well, that's a good question. It's going to be with a program called Moonlight. So what is Moonlight, you might ask? Well, if you've heard of NVIDIA Shield Gaming, this is an open source version of that. So you see that open source NVIDIA game streaming client. And so we're going to set that up on our virtual machine and remote play the game on my desktop here on the local network. And then we're also going to show you me doing remote gaming at a remote location through a VPN, and it's awesome. All right, let's get started. First thing we want to do is go to the setup guide. So if you scroll down here to the quick settings, basically you need to install the NVIDIA GeForce experience, or if you're running a Quadro like I am, you're going to run the Quadro experience. The difference in what you do is negligible. So if you're running a Quadro, follow mine exactly. And if you're running a GeForce card, go ahead and the only difference is installing the GeForce experience software versus the Quadro experience. All right, so let's get started. First things first, we'll go to my downloads because I've already downloaded them. So like I said, if you're running a GeForce card, go ahead and use the GeForce. I'm running the Quadro, so we're going to go ahead and turn that on, install it. That'll take just a second. You're going to need to log in. I'm going to move this over, and I'm going to log in real quick, and we'll be right back. Okay, here we go. Now I am logged in. So let's go back to our instructions and just go to moonlight.org. By the way, just go to moonlight-streaming.org. I'll put a link to it in the description on how to get to this tutorial. It's pretty straightforward. Basically, you've installed the Quadro experience / GeForce experience. Then you need to go down to Shield and then turn it on. So you go to the cog, click on Shield, and then you click on. Now, in my particular case, it's not showing my path of exile. Now, if you are running the GeForce experience, it will show path of exile. So that's the first step. So once you've done that, you want to look at the pairing process. On your PC, you'll get a pin to display the Moonlight to accept the dialog. Okay, so we're going to go back to my regular machine and check that out. So here we are. We are going to run Moonlight Setup. So just so you know there, we'll go ahead and look at that. Again, you're going to get this client setup portion of it. Which is going to be host downloads, client tools, Windows. So you go to here, you download what fits your operation. By the way, in case you're wondering, this works on Windows, Mac, Linux, and Chromebooks. And not only that, but it also even works on your mobile devices. So fun stuff. All right, so we're just going to go ahead and install Moonlight Setup on my desktop PC. And I agree to that. You can go ahead and look at the option just where you want it installed. Click install and launch. Boom. It already sees this device. So I'm going to go in and see if I can delete this. I'm going to delete this PC because that's the one I already had in there. And so it's going to be searching for a PC. You're probably not going to find your PC locally. So a couple things you need to remember. Number one, on this guy, oh look, Shield connection requests. So let me put that down for just 1 second. So the one thing you want to do is either turn off the firewall on this or your remote machine that you're going into, or go ahead and go down to the section where it talks about setting up firewalls. So I'm going to scroll down to that real quick. Yeah. So if you're having firewall issues, you can go and manually open up those ports here. Now, you can do port forwarding on your router, or even do the UPnP on your router in order to get this access from the outside. I am not doing that. I would rather VPN in here and do this, but not open up ports on my firewall. So that's what I do on the mobile side, which I'll show you after we get this all set up. So here we are. First thing I need to know is what's the IP address of this machine. We're going to go there, click this over here, details, and I know that it's 70.205. All right. Okay. So if I hit plus, you can do the IP address, and we're going to do 172.16.70.205 and click OK. Boom. Now, if you go here, there's going to be a connection request, and you see that number 4858. All right, so we're going to do that 4858. That's how this is kept secure from an NVIDIA standpoint. And here we go. Boom. And looky there, my path of exile shows up. But before we get to that, let's go look at a couple other things. So let's go to the settings in here. Now, by default, you're going to be 720p 60 FPS. And it's going to give you an estimate of what that bit rate you're going to need. So 10 megabits. So if you got a 10 megabit symmetrical connection, you're going to do 720p 60 FPS. Boom, no problem. Stereo 5.1. So you can get high quality sound if you want. You can do some mouse stuff. Let's say we want 1080p. So 1080p 30, which is what we were doing locally before on remote desktop. Also 10. Let's say 60 frames. Boom, 1080p, 60 FPS, 20 megs. If you're going to do this remote, it's going to be a little bit of a struggle depending on how much bandwidth that you have from an internet service standpoint. But look at this, 1440. You can do 1440. You can even do 4K. But man, look at the bandwidth requirements on it. So let's go back down to here and say you want to go above 60 FPS. There's a checkbox down here that says unlock unsupported FPS. They have some experimental FPS where you can do 90 and 120. Okay. All right. So now that we've got that, let's go ahead and launch. So if you look over here, I'm virtually machine, I'm logged in with TeamViewer into that machine. And now we're going to go ahead and launch this guy. Click, boom. Remember, Control Alt Shift Q will disconnect your session. There I am. There it is. So far, so good. And also you'll notice that your keyboard is kind of locked to this. So I can't really do anything here outside of it. But there's options for changing that stuff too. So we're going to give this just a minute. One of the things I want to point out here is I have turned on the FPS. So you see right up there, just in this basic remote session that we're doing right now, we are 1080p 60 frames per second, roughly. So let's go ahead and launch the game. Alright, here I am walking around, doing a little bit of gameplay. Let's go ahead and kick out here. Let's go somewhere and kill some monsters. Let's go right here. Notice my frames drop a little bit as I'm going through this, but just keep in mind that see, I'm rolling around here. Get these guys. Boom, 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 boom. 60 frames. Boom. All right. Okay, now let's go ahead and take a look at this at a faster. Let's just bump this up to see if it'll do 90. Actually, yeah, let's see if it'll do 90. And get back in there. Now, this Quadro might not be capable of doing that, so we'll see. With our frames, it's not showing our 60 at the moment, or oh, look at there, we're getting some faster frames. All right, so just keep in mind, this machine is running locally, and we'll see what kind of frame rate we get. It's not super great. Alright, so as you bump up the it seems like this Quadro just can't quite handle it. What else can you do here? Well, that's an interesting question. Let's go back to TeamViewer and look at this, because there is a remote desktop portion. So if you go in here, you can add remote desktop. So let's just take and copy this right here. Go to our GeForce Experience and add a game. Let's do this. All right. So let's edit that and give it a little bit better name. We'll call it remote desktop. All right. Let's go ahead and open our Moonlight client. Click on the desktop and see how it says remote desktop. All right. So remember, we were doing this here with 90 frames per second. Let's just go ahead and pump it up as fast as we can. We'll see what happens. We're going to do a remote desktop session. And so it'll be a little bit different. So you can use this for other than just gaming. Boom. Here we are in a remote desktop session. There we go. So look at that, 90 FPS. It's just sitting here still. You get, you know, we're getting that frames per second. So the game was probably part of the problem here. But let's see, you know, this is that machine, pops it open, boom. And you can open up, explore. Everything seems pretty fast. You see, I set this at 120, so we're getting some big frames. So let's go ahead and open that game up and see what happens. Alright, so we got our frame rates up there, and as you can tell, it does bounce up there in frames per second, but again, I think this is primarily because of the quadro. So one of the things is, if you are going to use this remote desktop, you might want to click this button that says optimize for remote desktop instead of games. And if you have a touchpad or a touchscreen, you may want to check this box here. So you have lots of options. Go ahead and check that. Play audio on host. Quit app after ending. So you've got several options here to check out. I'm Kevin Stevenson with GetMeTheGeek.com, and this has been a virtual gaming tutorial. Thanks for joining me.